suspected abuse, which is reasonably to assume is happening. Not all states have pastors listed in those mandates, but anyone who claims to know God or a loving God and doesn't report it should be arrested, sued, and never allowed near children. And it's not just adults and children. There can be abuse going on against senior citizens, or shunning and shaming for people that aren't married. And it doesn't even have to be about abuse. It can be how women choose to live, whether they want to be single, married and working, whether they decide they want to be child-free, man-free, or if they want pets instead. Whether or not women should have stereotypical male careers, or are men shamed for having a stereotypical female career job. There's shaming for every type of scenario. Men are shamed for not being married, not dating. I mean, there's even shame for certain Christian denominations for drinking coffee. I think that's more Mormonism. People are shamed for dancing, for wearing clothes that are appropriate for the occasion, but maybe they're a little tighter than repressed people want. Women are shamed, I believe, more than men, or at least consistently more than men. Men can really wear anything, but women, if you show anything, you are shamed. If you are in a position of leadership, or you take part in front volunteering, or you're on stage, or you may not be a leader, but you volunteer to be on the stage where a lot of people can see you, women dress shame other women who are on platforms. If you don't have more than one child or any children, you're shamed. If you're a little bit plus sized and you're a woman, oh man, you're shamed much more than if men are plus sized. And if you don't fit the traditional Barbie beauty in churches, you're shamed by the women much more than you're shamed by the men. How do women keep getting cycled through the cycle of shame? It's mostly by older women. My mother was shamed for having white hair at 40. She was premature graying. She was shamed for 30 years for not dyeing her hair. She wasn't shamed for being single because she married when she was 20. She hadn't even matured enough or was old enough to be single long enough to be shamed because she got married before she could drink alcohol. My father has been shamed for being quiet and not as masculine as other men, even though he has a PhD and makes over $100,000. And he's met celebrities and fished with senators. People still shame him for not being a toxic, stereotypical masculine man. I've been shamed by secular and Christians in person or on the job for being single, pet-free, man-free, and child-free at 31. Of course, I've been to all 50 states, Canada, and Mexico, and have met people from every country and every language dialect. There's nothing wrong with wanting any of these things or wanting none of them. The problem is society, especially in church, have little to no tolerance for difference. If you're different or you unfortunately break one of the 7 deadly sins, you're ostracized. Men can get their reputation back for the most part. Women, once you have a label on you, it's on you until they put you in the ground. And it might be spray painted on your tombstone. Women aren't supposed to be independent, free thinking, to speak their mind, to not need a man to speak for them. Maybe a woman wants to travel. Maybe she wants to be sexually experienced before she marries. Maybe she wants to sexually know if her partner is compatible, but she gets shamed for it. What if she's shamed for using safe sex practices because the man, whether he won't do it or tries to coerce her into not being safe? If you don't fit the rigid stereotypes of church requirement, you're shamed. Worst case scenario, they strike your name off membership and you're never seen in the pew again. If you teach something that may or may not be biblically accurate, you lose your teaching job if they don't like the way you say it. If a pastor lies to you about not wanting to throw his hat in the ring to be pastor, and 3 days later announces to the congregation he wants to become the pastor, and you confront him about his rapid change in mind, he then gaslights you saying, "I never said that," and then shames you for having a brain in your head and saying, "That's not what you said." Women always get the end of the stick in every scenario. Women have to be responsible for everybody's behavior. The only person you're responsible for is yourself. If a woman wants to be sexually experienced or sexually active, that's her business. If a church doesn't want women who are like that and unmarried, then I guess they have the right to choose people that fit what they want. However, if someone calls them a justifiable bad word and they fit it, then they get called it. Men can get away with really anything, but women who try even a little bit of masculine behavior are slapped down pretty quick. At the end of the day, church, religion, and dynamics are all about elevating a specific type of man and keeping everyone else pushed down. If you grew up in a church or are attending a church that doesn't have the toxic strongholds, dynamics, sexism, where women can't be in positions of authority, and they don't allow non-heterosexual people in positions of authority, and they're lucky they're even allowed to sit on a pew, you're in the minority. And you can't call these people out without losing everything you hold dear. The interesting part about it all is if the church just let people be, let people make their own choices, have consensual relationships with consensual behavior, where children was taken care of, where people interacted in a healthy way, and they stopped policing everyone's choices, lifestyles, and family dynamics, most of the toxic behavior in churches would not exist. If churches didn't have an agenda they forced everyone to adhere to in order to be a member or to have even a chance of influence somewhere in a church, we would not have the toxic dynamics we do. And not much has changed in 25 years since I went to church. I went to church from 1994 to almost the end of 2018. Not much has changed. I don't see any females in any positions of senior leadership in any Baptist, Calvinistic, or fundamentalist churches. I have noticed a few denominations that are allowing females to be pastors and ministers. That's great. I'm not sure if it's Methodist or some of the more famous denominations. But I know Catholic, Baptist, fundamentalism, and the more extreme versions of conservative denominations don't permit it. Some churches have been kicked out of their denomination hierarchy and no longer can go to conventions because they have a female in a position of senior leadership. And, not much changes. Because at the end of the day, a man who is conservative and believes what the Bible says cannot believe or support a woman in a position of senior leadership because it goes against what the Bible teaches and what it says. And that's another reason why I'm not a Christian. I'm not religious anymore. If a book that is a symbol of your faith, your religion, your community says, and I quote, women should not be in positions of authority, women must be silent, letting a woman speak is a judgment. Women in authority are a judgment from God. If you view women like that, don't ever say that women and men are equal, because you're a liar. And anyone who's in these churches that are members and support these denominations that hold to that women can't be leaders is enabling poisonous, abusive dynamics. You might be somebody who doesn't agree with it, but if you are a member, if you're voting to keep women out of positions of leadership, you are the problem. And you can't say, I don't agree with the church and still be a member. That's hypocrisy. I don't want to be in a religion, a faith, or a religious community that says women and men are equal but have different roles, but the men won't do the woman's roles. And if the woman tries to do the man's role, oh my goodness, what a pushback. People aren't equal until you have no problem doing their job for them without feeling any negative effects. If a woman can't do a pastor's job and a man can't organize the potluck and feel like it's a blessing and that they're having a great time without feeling emasculated or shamed for behaving in a way that isn't stereotypical their gender, genders aren't equal. You're kidding yourself. You can't say one thing and behave or react in a negative way if people start acting and doing what you say is equality. And the Catholic Church can say they're progressive all they want, but if there are no queer popes, no female popes, no non-binary popes, you're not progressive. You're an institution that furthers sexism, homophobia, shaming. Any religion that shames, shuns, and ostracizes people for going against the status quo by doing legal activity is an abusive environment. And even if your church isn't abusive, it's teaching these abusive dynamics and behavior. Luckily, the people in charge aren't acting on that doctrine, but it's still toxic. Because any institution run 100% by men where they won't let anybody else in power is abusive. Even if they don't do anything else, it's abusive. If you can't better yourself unless you fit very narrow gender, race, and belief guidelines, you can't do or go anywhere. The only reason my father became a teacher